Hey folks, thanks for joining me for this episode from the Embellish Podcast. If you got here by chance, please take a moment to hit the subscribe button. Hopefully I can be found on any podcasting platform that exists. And if you can't find me on a platform, send me an email at embellishpod@gmail.com and I'll try to get that taken care of. You can find video versions of this podcast on YouTube. You can find all of my links on Instagram at embellishpod or TikTok with the exact same handle. I have a website. It is www.embellishpod.com. It's a place to pick up these links, episode details, and more. Today, I'm going to have Michael joining me from Reverence Bourbon, based out of Nashville, Tennessee. It's a really fun conversation. It's a really great budding brand I think you guys should be paying attention to. This morning, this afternoon, whenever you happen to be consuming this particular podcast, I have Michael Frazier joining me from Reverence Bourbon, which is based out of Nashville, Tennessee. If you could, Michael, just for a few seconds, give me kind of a who are you and what is Reverence?
Yeah, man. So thanks, John, for having me on the Embellish Podcast. Very grateful for the opportunity. And just to speak on the brand, Reverence Bourbon is made here locally out of Nashville, Tennessee. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. I've been a resident of Nashville for about 14 years. Came here to go to school and went to school originally to be an exercise science teacher, to be a PE teacher. I did my first in observation in the school, and 5 minutes in, I changed my mind. I don't want to teach no more. So go down the rabbit hole, switching, majors, want to be exercise science, work, not in a school base, but more so in the community. So graduated 2014, became a coordinator in metro parks, did that for about 4 years, got burnt out, became a firefighter. In the midst of being a firefighter, I was sitting in a cigar lounge, smoking a cigar. I like to smoke cigars. And it was just one particular brand I'm not going to speak on that people were just buying constantly. And I'm not going to say I'm a fan of, but I have a more mature palate for what the paying customer was paying for this particular brand, folks. So long story, I was like, I believe I can make a better product than this product they're getting, because it saw people just going in line back to back, ordering this whiskey at the bar. So 2019, I found a mentor, guidance whiskey. His name's Jason Regal. He's my frat brother. Also went to Tennessee State. He had a whiskey, like I said, called Guidance, and the fact I can touch somebody that that looked like me, that was in the space, I knew that I can do it at that point. So 2020, I wrote out the plan, wrote out the vision, wrote out what Reverence is, and 2022 I went into retail, and now here we are. We're here locally. We started out with about 8 counties. Now we're statewide in stores. Now online, we have about 48 states that we ship to direct to consumer. So if you want to order Reverence offline, Reverence Enterprises, if you're not in Tennessee or Utah, I will ship directly to your doorstep at reverenceenterprises.com. So right now we're in year 5, the third batch. It's the oldest batch. It's a 5-year bourbon made here out of Tennessee. Everything I did with the product, with the brand, I want to be, the Tennessee story. And what that Tennessee story is my personal story. And so my personal story is the definition of reverence. So reverence means to pay homage and give respect to things in high due regard, right? So take it back to my childhood. 2001, I was in the 6th grade. For those who do know, 9/11 is when that happened in 2001. My mom, who is a retired military veteran of 27 years, at that time she was deported for active duty. So I have an older brother, a younger sister. My oldest brother was in high school playing football. My younger sister was just starting grade school. And when she got deployed to DC for about a year or so, my brother quit playing football to take care of me. And my little sister, she moved with my godmom in Texas. So reverence means to pay homage to the sacrifices my mom and brother made for me to be who I am today. So that is the story of reverence.
So you talked a little bit earlier about kind of beginning the brand while also being a firefighter and trying to work on your other career. What is that like trying to balance launching, at least beginning the idea in 2020, which is one of the most tough years that there is to try to start anything, while also being a frontline essential worker during that time frame. Like, what is that balance like for the launch?
So in 2020, I can say there was no such thing as balance, right?
Mhm.
You had pretty much the whole country was shut down if you wasn't essential. But if you were essential, that heightened your I want to say heightened, it increased your level of productivity and activity because you're responding to a lot of things going on in the world. You're asked to do more because less is being held responsible for because people are not working, people are staying home. Uh, COVID was going around, so you had to protect yourself as well. So in that whole mess, being a firefighter, the good thing about it is you only work 9 days a month, right?
Mhm.
So I had about 22, let's say 21 days a month. I could actually focus on reverence.
Mhm.
Uh, I won't say tragically, but unfortunately, I had caught COVID twice, so I couldn't work. So the benefit of that was I had more time to put into doing reverence in the confines of my own home, trying to heal and protect myself. So having that dynamic, it was challenging. Also, you got to look at, people wasn't working in the buildings no more, right? So I had to, turn in all of my license, all of my permits, all the search I got to have. I got to do electronically, and then wait until somebody gets to it from their home, from an email, to respond back.
Mhm.
So you look at the time frame. I told you I launched in 22. I started the business in 20, and that whole time was pretty much me trying to get certified clearance. Also, in the same time, trying out different bourbons. You know what I'm saying? Because I grew a palate, to the bourbon. Like I said before, 2020, just smoking cigars and just having the aesthetic, and it resonated with my personality. Being very reserved, being laid back, chill, easy, just a sipper. And so, in that time when I wasn't, when I didn't have COVID, I would go to distillers because they were still open, and the good thing, alcohol was deemed essential
Right.
for the most part. So that was the good thing about it. So I went to distilleries all across Middle Tennessee, Kentucky, trying bourbons, and that first year I tried maybe about 200 to 300 different variations of whiskey and bourbon. Not from just Kentucky, Tennessee, Iowa, Indiana. They make bourbon everywhere,
Mhm.
and I just really had to hone in on what I want the product to taste like. I want it to be an all-inclusive product. I want it to be it's palatable to beginners, intermediate, and also aficionados. You know what I'm saying? And so that was my journey. Beforehand, just trying to balance out work, also get licensing, and also getting the product the way I want it to be.
Mhm.
So that was the pressure.
Yeah, and you said kind of from the beginning you were tasting a bourbon that exists in the marketplace, and you thought I can do this better. I can absolutely do this better. But as you're kind of developing the brand, you're sitting in Tennessee, and Tennessee whiskey has kind of its own thing. You made a conscious decision to lean into being a bourbon brand as opposed to just I don't say just whiskey like it's a bad thing, but as opposed to being whiskey or Tennessee whiskey. or any other number of things that would kind of, open up opportunities. You got into bourbon, which is restrictive more so than just about anything. What drove that decision other than, or was it just simply like, I tasted this thing and I want to make something that's better than that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So Tennessee is known for whiskey, and the Old Guard is, yeah. So there was no space for Tennessee bourbon. You had Tennessee whiskey and all those things. So I want to find a space where I can carve out, Tennessee bourbon. So making a product in Tennessee, being of appropriate age to be called a bourbon, and then, like I said, I want to make this product 100% Tennessee. And so from the cork, to the label, to the wrapping, we made sure that we stayed true to that mission. So the style of my bottle is called Nashville. I use Tennessee oak barrels. Like I said, this bourbon is 5 years young, 5 years old rather, and the distillery that I'm under in contract with is Nashville Craft. And so having that story, also me being from Tennessee, local firefighter, first responder, all of those things, all that played into a role. And I didn't see a Tennessee bourbon on the market, and I want to be the first to actually, create a space for that.
So your story, you're a military kid, so you've probably been all over the place in your past, but kind of the places that you've called home, at least in the last dozen or so years, have ranged, or maybe last 20 years, have ranged from Memphis to Jackson to Nashville. So you've gone kind of from West Tennessee to Middle Tennessee. What makes Nashville the place as opposed to Memphis, or as opposed to Jackson? Like, how did that become home for you?
So me moving to Nashville was it was an eye opener. I initially came here for school, but in the midst of me going to school and all that, I worked and everything, and I saw the growth in the city. I saw how the city embraced, local small businesses, local brands, anything in the spirit industry, hospitality, things of that nature. So me seeing how the city embraced it and actually opened my eyes up to entrepreneurship, because I feel like Nashville is just that melting pot for like entrepreneurs, creators, things of that nature. And geographically, you look at Nashville, we're at most 6 hours from like any major city through the South. We can touch Chicago, we can touch Atlanta in 4 hours. You can go to Charlotte, you can go to Memphis, and we have all the major interstates that come through Nashville. So it's a lot of traffic that comes through here. The tourism is probably one of the biggest revenues out here. And knowing that and seeing how, like, one of my major accounts that I have is the airport. The reason why the airport does so good is because you got about 2 million people who want something they can't get elsewhere. And if you got in the airport, that means I can take it with me on the plane and not, have to go through TS or anything like that. So that was one of the main things I looked at, being in Nashville and being so centralized, not just to, in the state, but just geographically, the major markets that surround Nashville. And like I said, it's a big melting pot out here. I don't know if people know, in 2023, Nashville had a tourism revenue of $10 billion, right? So that went towards the tourism markets, the bars, the lounges, like I said, the hotels, all this stuff. It's $10 billion. I can be in those spaces with a product, and the fact that I'm local, you can't get me anywhere else. I'm very exclusive. I thrive on my exclusivity. And so, being that I'm a 100% local brand, tourists buy my product, like hotcakes from McDonald's. So that's why I love Nashville. It's very, very close to everything, and I just love the support it gives, like brands like me.
Yeah, and Nashville it holds a special place for me too. So I'm in Western Kentucky, and that is our airport. Like if we're going anywhere, we're going to Nashville. That's where we fly out of. My in-laws are from Middle Tennessee, from the Jackson area specifically, and so we've spent a lot of time there, and it has had an incredible growth over the last 20 years. And it doesn't hurt that the airport puts you on about a 2-hour flight away from about 80% of the United States. Right, you can be just
Yeah.
about anywhere in the United States in 2 hours. Um, but you got to Nashville almost by chance, right? Because you start off in Memphis, you attend a university in Jackson that then shuts down, and then you end up at TSU, almost by a stroke of fate at this point in time. Tell me a little bit about the TSU connections and how that's kind of helped you, like this it's almost a fate movement that put you here that ultimately resulted in your ability to do this.
Yeah, so the way I got to Tennessee State, man, like I said, like you just said, I started off in Jackson. I played basketball, and the school shut down at Lambert University. So pretty much, I want to go somewhere where it was a major city, but not too far from home.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I want to get the HBCU experience. I feel like that if I was around, my culture, my type of environment, I feel like it would be very beneficial. And when I got to TSU, I just felt that family oriented vibe. Uh, this is a funny story right here. So this is how I quote unquote committed to go to Tennessee State. I drove from Memphis on a Wednesday to turn in my admissions. And I got to Tennessee State about 12 noon, around lunchtime. And I walked through the student center, and I just hear a lot of loud music. And lo and behold, they have this thing called Courtyard Wednesdays, where they have a DJ out playing music. People are vibrant, kicking and hanging out. It's the middle of the day. It's almost like a party, like a day party. Mm-hmm. And I was like, do y'all, like, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? So at the time, TSU had about 10 to 12,000 students. Mm-hmm. So picture that dynamic in a gymnasium or outside. It's a lot of people just kicking and dancing in the middle of the day. And I just felt that connection, you know what I'm saying? And then once I got in, trying to get financial aid, people was very, very helpful. Hey, call this person, very resourceful. And once I started school, I know people I went to school with that was going here. So I had a lot of relationships already beforehand, but, going to school in the midst of branching out, I made a lot of relationships, not just with current students, but also alumni. I had a few alumni that, looked out for me, invited me to Sunday dinner, with the family, knowing life of a college student. You know what I'm saying? Money's kind of tight. We're in class. You don't have really much time to work if you can, but, it was a very family-oriented situation. Mm-hmm. And once I graduated, I really saw, the power of that, building a network. Some of my friends are in different spaces that I can use and utilize to help me, and I can help them as well. And like I said, my mentor, Jason Regal, he went to Tennessee State. He's my frat brother. We're in the same chapter. So it all came full circle once I, ventured out into what I wanted to do. I ironically found somebody in the same close, like-minded, that was doing the same thing I'm doing, and that was just a blessing. So Tennessee State is always home. I'm always, make sure I do something for the school. I do a thing for homecoming. I tailgate, so I buy tickets for tailgating, buy game tickets, set up a big tailgate, have people come by. I have a big Reverence tent, a bar actually, so I broadcast the product in that vein as a family space to come tailgate, kick it, but also drink some Reverence.
Yeah, it becomes a university brand at that point, and TSU, up until a couple of years ago. So I went to Murray State, right? So we played in the Ohio Valley until a couple of years ago. We moved into the Missouri Valley. So I always hated seeing TSU show up because it was going to be a tough game. It was always going to be a tough game. But the size of the university is about the same as Murray State. We're looking at 10, 11, 12,000 students. So it's big enough to have a vibe that's a little bit bigger than, say, Lambeth. Lambeth is a much smaller university, but it's not so big that you kind of get swallowed. You still keep that family vibe, which allows you to kind of to build out of that. You mentioned guidance. Well, I guess guidance of your brand through guidance, right? Tell me a little bit about the relationship that kind of helped launch what you're doing.
Yeah, so my relationship with Jason and guidance, like I said, we found out he was my frat brother, so I got connected with his one of his line brothers off his line. He crossed at TSU in 1998.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a mutual friend that was his line, but I didn't meet because Jason, he just came back from California. And so tell you about Jason, he has a medical company. So that was his full-time thing. And then when I met him, I was very, very intentional. I told him, I'm not here to ask you for no money. You know, I don't want, no check or nothing like that. I really want to learn how to make my own brand. And he was only about 6 months into the space. And so it was like, I'm learning just as much as I can teach you. But if you're willing to shadow, follow me around, just learn from there, we can go from there. But, I'm just learning just as much as you are. And so I was like, all right, cool. And what ended up happening from that conversation, we ended up creating a nonprofit with an alkaline bottle called a pH9 generator. And I said, man, you know what? I work in the gym. He had dead stock. And so I took the dead stock. I said, I can sell this at my job. Just give me the spiel. I know about alkaline water. And I turned to my own side business through him. And he would just see the numbers come in. He was like, dude, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just selling, pH9. I work out. I know the product. And from that point on, he was like, okay, he has some work about himself. So followed him. We did that together, created a nonprofit together. He met my family. I met his family. Became like real, like the friendship became genuine at that point. And so once I launched my product, he taught me everything. He got me the relationship with my current distiller right now. I thank him for that. Once I did that and I actually launched and got on my own sea legs, he gave me a gift. The gift was a month's worth of PR, public relations. For those who know, like those PR deals are not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to just gift me that, to get me, started on the ground running, they gave me a good head start to break into the market and actually have a strong post, because PR is very, very important. When you're building a brand, you're trying to build a legacy, trying to get out there in the marketplace. Marketing is everything. So if you don't have the right voices, the right channels, the right platforms to put you on that place, it's going to be pretty difficult, so trying to get it from the ground up. But he gifted me that, and I'm very appreciative. And to this day, we're still great friends. Like me and him just got done talking. We had lunch together about 2 days ago. So we stay in touch at least 2 or 3 times a week. So it's a friendship for sure, a brother. We know that's really how we started.
It definitely sounds like you brought a little bit of Memphis hustle into Nashville, right? Because those two cities move very, very differently from each other, and one takes a little bit more grind and grit than the other, and so it's maybe a little easier to move around Nashville if you've got that kind of on you. And it sounds like the support has really been about making sure that there are enough differentiated voices in a really crowded marketplace. There's a whole lot of brands that are out there. PR is very, very essential for brands because, there's, a couple years ago, there was only a few hundred craft distilleries. Now there's a few thousand of them, and you're trying to compete all in the exact same marketplace. And even in Nashville, if I look in Nashville, there's a half a dozen or more brands just floating in the metro area, right? And so you're trying to bust into that. But you mentioned earlier you're working with Nashville Craft Distiller to bring your product forward. Was that Was the connection made, and that was kind of the beginning of it, or did you have to go through any barriers with other distilleries trying to get access to quality liquid to be able to put out?
No, I've reached out to a few. Yeah, to your credit, there are a lot of craft distilleries out here, but everyone doesn't contract distill. People are very particular. Everything's off relationships. Obviously politics too, from the legality standpoint, and a lot of people wasn't forthcoming with trying to carry me and like help me build. And Bruce Boyko, I'm gonna call him by name. He's the head distiller at Nashville Craft. I met him during COVID. He was open. He was like, he taught me everything I knew as far as the art of making bourbon, and very appreciative of it. And like I said, most distillers are not, open to pulling people in that want to create their own brand, because they're trying to push what they have going on. You got a lot of people that source, but you got to have you have to register your brand under some type of distiller. You got to have a DSL, distiller's license and all this stuff. And if you don't have that, then you can't make a product. And so, he was very, very open. The first day we met, he was like, "Man, I want to help you if possible. I provide that opportunity." And we just started like that, man. And Bruce is a very, very knowledgeable guy. Makes great bourbon, great whiskey. Shout out to Nashville Craft. So it was great, man. He actually helped me craft the taste I wanted. And I told him that, I wanted to create something that you couldn't resemble to another brand, but it was also going to be my own recipe, right? So craft doesn't really source out any of their stuff that they make. So what we did was we got a few craft stuff made in craft, and we took one barrel from Columbia, Tennessee, same mash bill, same oak barrel, same char grade, and we blended it. And so what happens is now I have my own recipe, because you can't get what I had here nowhere, but I brought something else to blend. So now people ask me, what does Reverence taste like? It tastes like Reverence, because if I was to tell you, let's throw a brand at Whistle Pig or something like that, it's not Whistle Pig. It's not the same thing, by nature and by creation. So it's one of one. We want to maintain the exclusivity of it, because we want to do 1,500 bottles a year. So picture that, the first year we launched, we had about 2 years of runway of marketing just to get it out. And 2022, I was in about 8 counties. I want to say we launched in February 24, 2022. By, I want to say April, we had to go to an allocation in 8 counties. So the reason being was because of the pandemic, people were hoarding barrels. Like, you had to buy your stuff up front, because the pandemic, the economy was very uncertain. You might as well buy your stuff now cheap, low, and hold it over time. You get a big return on your buck. So a lot of people's doing it in the marketplace. So we had to freeze some things, but the way sales were going, we had to go to an allocation. And so in 30 days, we got 30 stores. We had about 3 cigar lounges. And I say for about, 8 months. Yeah, by like October, November, we exceeded our sales expectation. It was on an 18-month expectation. We beat it by 10 months. And so, like I said, we're only in 8 counties. And so now, looking at it now, we have statewide distributing. I can only imagine what this is going to look like now. And like I said, we only do 1,500. It's still gonna be an allocation. But
Mm-hmm.
once we get the volume of stores and accounts, across across the state, then we have to create another conversation. Like, how does this? Do we have to go up on price point? Do we have to up on inventory? Well, no, because the demand is there. The story, the allure, the fact that you can only get it here, adds to the value of the bourbon. You know what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of allocations out there. It's hard to get. They're going for 100, 150, 200. I'm gonna create a $65, $70 product that's
Right.
probably just as good, if not better, but it's affordable.
Right.
And when you try it, it's like, now this is better than what I paid 250, 300 for. You know what I'm saying? And once we get that buzz and everything of that nature,
Mm-hmm.
you'll start to see like the demand go up. And right now we're in a good space. We have some other distributors that are interested as far as carrying us. We got a statewide that wants to partner with us in Georgia. So we got to figure out what that looks like. We're actually still working on me getting back home in Memphis. The irony behind that is that my distributor, they cover 75 counties except for Shelby County.
Mm-hmm.
And so very special, very rare, very ironic, obviously. And so that's been the hardest one to get. But I'm definitely looking forward to be available back home,
Mm-hmm.
create that, because that's the origin of the story. And I want people not to buy my product, but like buy into the story, buy into
Yeah.
what it means and all those things, because people think it's an everyday whiskey, it's a sipper.
Mm-hmm.
It's a something that you take with celebration, for celebratory, purposes, accomplishment, all those things. So we're very grateful where we're at right now. We just continue to let the brand grow organically.
Mm-hmm. Now, at 1,500 bottles, the assumption is you're somewhere between 5 and 7 barrels for a blend, right? To kind of get your math to work out there. As you grow, right? You're doing 1,500 bottles a year. That's maybe a batch size, maybe it's a couple. Would your goal be to increase the batch size, or increase the number of batches that you would release in a year? Keep your batch sizes to 5 to 7 and do 3 of them a year, as opposed to saying, okay, now let's just triple this to have triple the volume. Like, which way would you want to go with that?
Starting out, I want to keep the batch size the same, because
Mm-hmm.
with bourbon, I'm pretty sure your viewers know this. Every bourbon is not the same.
Mm-hmm.
You have to use fresh barrels every time. So the fact that I can control the number for per batch,
Mm-hmm.
that creates a different flavor story and profile per batch.
Right.
This is my oldest one out of all three. This is my first time doing a 5 year, and so it's going pretty great. And I want to maintain that quality over and over. And so if I keep the batch the same number but not increase, I think I can maintain that quality, that same consistency. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're probably gonna look at doing long term, maybe do 2 batches a year if sales
Mm-hmm.
start to ramp up. But that's really the thing, man. Keep it the same size, keep it, the exclusivity, keep it differential from batch 1, 2, 3, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So people can know, hey, I know batch 2 because it was this profile, it was this mash, it was this release time.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the season of the barrel, it contracts or expands. So that dictates the flavor profile. So we start to learn those particulars and intricacies of the juice. That's when you start to like have an appreciation for it now. So
Mm-hmm.
we're definitely looking at doing it that way.
So, you answered the question I was going to ask, which was, as you kind of go from batch to batch, are you trying to keep them similar enough, or are you kind of creating a vintage profile where there's the, batch 1 vintage, batch 2 vintage, batch 3 vintage, and they all kind of, vary slightly. I guess, is there a central flavor profile that you try to come back to with having, like some extra bits around the edge, or do you just look at this is what's available and this is the best blend I can make?
Nah, I like the majority corn that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Our first 2 batches, we did 77% corn, 13% rye, 10% barley. The reason why is, like I said, I want to make the bourbon a all inclusive that all palates could appreciate it. So for those that know, those high ryes have a loud bite,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And if you keep the rye, like I said, I was at 13%. Like that was a sweet spot. But
Mm-hmm.
the flavor that everyone loves and enjoys is the char, the age, and the high corn content. And so with the third batch, we decreased the rye, increased the corn. So we went to 80% corn. So now you have a lot more richness, a lot more boldness because it's older, and everyone loves it. When I first went to market, my number one customer was stay-at-home housewives,
Mm-hmm.
which was crazy. Uh, the reason why was, it's the pandemic, people working from home, but also you saw a transition of women getting to gardening, staying outside, chilling, relaxing. At first it was wine. I had them doing bourbon, and so now it's like, okay, how do I keep this same customer? How do I not commit, but like engage them even more? I create a cocktail book. So you subscribe to my website at reverenceenterprises.com. In our emails, we send out cocktails, they make with the bourbon. You never heard of bourbon made with cocktails, bourbon lemonades, Mount Juleps. I have a blackberry cocktail that's very, very popular, and I named them all, across my story. I have a raspberry smash that's named after my sister, the Georgiana, which is her middle name. It's a raspberry peach and bourbon. Very, very good.
That's a summer drink right there.
Yeah, yeah.
That the blackberry, I always wait until it gets real hot in the summer because we have some blackberries, and so I'm like on the blackberry cocktail, the raspberry cocktail, the peach cocktail. I'm ready for it to be warm enough for that, for sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the blackberries is muddled blackberries with some mint leaves, 1 pour peach schnapps, and an ounce and a half of Reverence. And keep that in mind when you're ready to do it. So I know y'all got great fresh blackberries.
Mm-hmm.
So put that in your repertoire and let me know what you think about it. But that's the black of the berry. And so, like I said, stay at home, housewives, we catered to them with the cocktail list, and then we saw sales shoot up. So that's what really triggered us to be an allocation. And we have shifted, like I said, we are in the cigar lounges now. So we've actually gone into a space where we're going to cater to the cigar culture. If you look at it, there is no distinct face for the cigar culture in Middle Tennessee or just in this area alone, And so by having a local bourbon, also the local brands of cigars like Crown Heads, Oz, those things, which I know the owners, they were on my podcast. We created an alliance and a market for bourbon and cigars and those type of people that enjoy that type of aesthetic and type of environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're like actually going to, because both markets verticalize each other, and that's the space that we're in right now with the partnerships, with the cigar industry for sure.
Yeah, and so this, I guess, that's a really good bookend, right? Because you began the idea from a cigar lounge, and now you're moving towards cigar lounges. And I say that there's a humidor sitting right here, so I'm with you on the cigar lounge idea, and especially in this part of the country, it's weird. There's a lot of tobacco grown in this area, but there's not a significant cigar culture. It's an odd situation, but you guys, kind of created some cigars to pair along with the bourbon. Did you have any flavor characteristics, or did you say, here's my bourbon, and you let the cigar folks kind of suss that out, or did y'all work together? How did you get to a flavor profile?
We worked that out.
Mhm.
I'm very versed in the cigar world. So what pairs well with Reverence at the base is a Habano. So a Habano wrapper is a medium dark, not dark brown, but dark enough to where it's maybe like a royal. I call it royal brown Maduro. Habano. Maduro is your darker leaves, and so the Habanos pair very well with the medium because of the girth of the bourbon. And the Modelo is not a heavy cigar, but it's mellow enough to match the flavor profile of Reverence. So one of my favorite cigars is the Crown Heads. I love Crown Heads. I love my go-to is the Las Calaveras 2024 special edition. My day-to-day smoke is the Mia Diaz. And so Crown Heads is like my top tier. So I didn't get with those guys. I had a broker that was based out of Kentucky, Hopkinsville, I believe. His name was John Stewart. And he actually took a Habano house cigar and put in a rack and put them in some racks and layered the bottom of the barrel in bourbon and compressed it for about, I think he said about a week. So when he compressed it, pretty much the fumes and the breathability of the bourbon infused into the cigar, so we had like a rich flavored cigar, and it was pretty good actually. Those were going very, very well. And then I was like, let me, instead of doing infused, let me find something that's like the right flavor profile of Reverence based off its natural origin. Right. And so the Nicaraguan leaf and fillers pair well. So any Nicaraguan tobacco, like I said, the wrap is a Habano or better. It goes great with the with Reverence. But if you had to put a particular brand, me personally, I'm going with the Las Calaveras 2024.
So it sounds like your brand and it has kind of gone from gardening housewives to cigar lounge. That's a really, really wide marketplace that exists. It's pretty impressive,
Yeah.
realistic. And we talked a little bit about kind of expanding distribution or expanding bottling or whatever. But if you were to look at the brand itself, what are some growth places that you'd like to see that are not specifically in the number of bottles sold? Like, are there events? Are there experiences you're wanting to kind of create, as far as the brand is concerned?
Yes, I definitely want to create the experience. Right now, I've created a secondary business. It's called Regal Experiences Group, and so we create Regal experiences. So the name of my podcast is called Pssita Podcast. For those who know what Pssita means, it puts some smoke in the air. And so we're on there talking bourbon, cigars, depending on the guest. We're talking about entrepreneurship, sports, pretty much cigar talk with a stick and a drink. And the drink, of course, is Reverence. And so what we're doing is we're exposing the world to the cigar culture. And to have, like knowing my story, I started in a cigar lounge. This is why it's so great to like have these conversations. So we're doing a cigar festival. We're going to grow it into where it's a boutique. It's called Pssita Fest, July 12th. And basically what we're doing, we'll be having all types of arts and also types of things that's culture. What's so popular right now is the sip and paint event.
Yep.
So we're going to actually do a puff and paint.
Oh, nice.
So we're going to have, it'll be downtown Nashville. We'll have a puff and paint area. We'll we'll be giving away cigars. Of course, we'll have the bar with Reverence, of course. But we really want to, introduce people to cigars, bourbon, enjoyment, lifestyle. It's sundress season. People like to wear. You've been to the Derby.
Yep.
People like to get dressed up. Their things in the summertime. So why not tie it to a bourbon brand? To a group that specializes in those spaces. And my partners are cigar company owners. And like I said, we know the owners of Crown Head. I know Tim Oz of Oz Cigars. We've meeting a lot of people in the cigar space so we can come together and create this big push that, cigar and bourbon belongs together. And we should do it together.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, like there's not many more natural pairings, and honestly, cigars and bourbon go together, and cigars and coffee go together, right? So that's the other thing that exists. You got your morning time, you got your evening time. They both work super super well. Um, you know, I'm pushing up on time, and part of it is consideration. The storm just rolled in, and I could lose power at any second, so I'm trying to make sure we have a good stop point here. So Nashville's a big tourist spot. If I'm in Nashville, do I have a spot that I can come see you or come see the brand, or do I just need to be looking in stores for the product?
Personally, you want to come see me, I am faithfully at Casa de Monte Cristo at 600 9th Avenue South. The reason why that place is so special, that's why I wrote out, the plan. That's why I saw what I saw. I want to create it. They know me on a first name basis. If you go in there and ask, I want to try something local, they automatically will give you reverence. I had my launch there. It's on my Instagram. It's where you got to scroll through. But my launch party, we did it was about 200 to 300 people there. It was the fourth highest revenue night for that establishment to date. And that was 2022, so 3 years ago. And so that was my very first account. They got me my first distribution deal through relationship. And so Casa is always gonna be my Casa,
Yeah.
Unintended. And so man, you go there, great environment, great variety of sticks. Like I said, you go in there, you say you met me or whatever, they're gonna take care of you, they're gonna treat you like family. So from a experience standpoint, I recommend Casa. Right now we're in about 20 to 25 stores locally. You can find me at Cork Dorks, Midtown, here in the city. We got a couple of bigger accounts. We're working on one of the largest retailers, Frugal McDougal.
Yep.
That's where a lot of tourists go. So once we lock that in, I feel like we'll be in a great space. But we're in Smyrna, Murfreesboro. We're slowly but surely growing back out. Like I said, we just got statewide. And for those that don't know, I'm doing this solely on my own. So I can only be so many places at once. But I'm starting to grow with some more friends that's going to help me grow it as well. So it's a slow grow process, but you got to love the labor that goes into it and have patience. So.
Yes, and slow growth is sustainable usually. If rapid growth is hard to maintain. So, it's going the right direction. And I had a music artist on a couple years ago on the podcast, and he said, if you get 1,000 people to show up to a thing, they're really not there for you. They're there for each other. But if you can get between 1 and 300 people, all of those people are there for you. So when you're talking about having 200 or 300 people show up for a launch event, they're there for you and for the brand, not necessarily for the socialization with each other, right? Like that's a huge pull, and being able to do that is really impressive for a brand that's kind of, I don't want to say in its infancy, because you are at 3, 4, 5 years old at this point. At least from the idea to implementation, we're at 5 years at this point, which is a lifetime in a small business, right? Because most of them fail in the first 24 months or so. So impressive work. I'm glad to see the marketplace specifically in Tennessee, kind of opening up and embracing smaller crafter brands, because that you get a kind of a variation in flavor profile that doesn't exist from major distillers, major brands, all of those things. Because it's nice to be able to buy a bottle of Buffalo Trace anywhere in the world, and it always tastes the same. But that also gets a little bland after a while, and you want to try something different. You want to see some different flavor profiles that exist. So, like I said, thank you for hopping on and having the conversation with me, Michael. And anytime that you guys are doing a new launch or an event that you want to let me know, and I want to try to do what I can to use my platform to help the smaller brands out there, because I think they're the ones that are the lifeblood of the market.
Absolutely, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, man, and grateful for the opportunity. For all the viewers, you can follow me at Reverence Bourbon on Instagram. My website is reverenceenterprises.com. I have merchandise. You can buy this hat that I have on, also on the website, and also my T-shirt. And I have jogging suits as well. And also for my event, the Pssita Festival, you can Instagram Pssita Festival 615. And also follow my podcast, Pssita_podcast, on Instagram and YouTube. And check us out, man. Got a lot of great guys on there. We had Rich Ryan for our first one. So a lot of great conversations, a lot of local leaders. And like I said, man, I'm glad to be here. And anybody that's looking for reverence, just grab it off the shelf or off the website. We'll take it straight to your doorstep.
Yeah, absolutely. Clear it off the shelf so that way we can get to the next batch, so we can see from vintage, batch 1 to batch 4, 5, 6, 12. We want to see what flavor profiles you're going to bring forward to us. Time is the one thing you can't make more of. I'm appreciative for being able to hang out for a little bit.
No doubt, man, and appreciate you, John.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode from the Embellish Podcast. If you enjoyed this, please leave me a review on whatever platform you're consuming this on, and leave a comment if possible. Hit me up on social media on TikTok or Instagram using Embellish Pod, and give me a follow so you can keep up with what's going on here. I can be found at www.embellishpod.com with all of my links, account, contact details, and more. Thanks for stopping by.